for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K. 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came in to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K. 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro on this Friday, June 7, live from Sir Winston's. We are at Winnie's on Crescent. Thanks for joining us. We are 3 weeks away from the NHL Draft, in which the Montreal Canadiens have the 5th pick overall in the draft, and that's why I got one of our draft experts right here with me. And I can't wait to hear what he has to say. They call him the Snake. I call him Serpente. You're watching this right now just past 10 p.m. Eastern. We are actually here in the afternoon at Winnie's, where the rain came down earlier this morning. But right now the sun is out, and there's a bunch of people on Crescent Street, downtown Montreal. There's a bunch of people on the terrace right now. We're looking at them. It is the Grand Prix weekend, of course. Sir Winston's is kicking off the terrace season. They're gearing up for the Canadian Grand Prix, and it's this weekend, of course. Winnie's always a fun time in the center of the action. Come try the everyday classic apps, nachos, and chicken wings, or try the fabulous burgers. The Winnie's salad is always a great choice, or the jambalaya is an all-time customer favorite. I can tell you that I had the club sandwich. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Simon here was eating chicken wings like he was going to the electric chair. Enjoy happy hour 5 to 7 with complimentary hors d'oeuvres at the buffet 5 days a week. See you at Winnie's on Crescent. Also brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. Also brought to you in part by Playground. Also brought to you in part by La Bittt Tibi. And we're going to get to them just a little bit later. And we thank them for their partnership and for their support. Without further ado, I bring him in. He's a former scout in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He does a lot of scouting, even on his free time. And, of course, he is one half of the podcast Processus that he does with Mathias Brunet, La Presse newspaper, both of them collaborators, of course, on BPM Sport. And it's part of the BPM Sports podcast network called La Commission Athlétique. Once again, the podcast is called Le Processus. Stimo, the Snake Boisvert, what's going on?
I'm doing great, Tony. And you?
I'm doing extremely well, and I'm happy to have you with me here at Winnie's because, once again, the NHL Draft is exactly 3 weeks away. And for those who missed it, I'm happy to say that the Sick Podcast will be in Las Vegas for the draft. So we arrive on the 25th, and we're going to stay until the 30th. And, of course, with the draft being on Friday the 28th and Saturday the 29th, what that means for the Sick Podcast is I will bring you the Sick Podcast at the normally scheduled time, which will be 10 p.m. Eastern live, which is going to be 7 p.m. in Las Vegas. I'll bring it to you on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, the Friday night, and the Saturday from Las Vegas. I very much look forward to that. A, because it's always a good time to go to the draft, and B, because I'm 51 years old and I've never been to Vegas, but it's better late than never, I guess, so I can't wait. I'm not crazy about hearing that it's going to be like 120 degrees or whatever it is, but other than that, it's all good, man. It's all good. You've been to Vegas before?
Nope.
You've never been?
Nope.
Jeez, why aren't you coming with us?
I have obligations in Montreal.
He's got obligations. Yeah. All right. But luckily, he was free today.
Yeah. La Presse and Processus.
So, you know what? You're a regular collaborator on the Sick Podcast, or semi-regular, let's call it, because you're a busy guy. And I know on a couple of occasions you've said something to the effect of, if the Montreal Canadiens draft Trevor Connelly, I'm going to buy season tickets.
Yes, I did.
So tell me what's happened in the last couple of months here for me not to hear anything about Trevor Connelly from like anybody else who has a hockey opinion or in the hockey world. Like, anybody's top 10 list other than Snake Boisvert's list, you're not going to find Trevor Connelly. Correct me if I'm wrong. What's happened?
I think they should all go to the optometrist and change their glasses.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's going on?
Because, look, I've rarely seen a guy like this. He's fast. He has great hands. But on top of it, he can do all this at a very high speed. Now, I'm not going to compare him to Connor McDavid. Obviously, I'm not stupid.
Who's the best to ever do it at that high speed, by the way,
exactly.
right?
But it's the same idea in the sense that not many players are able to do that. The older crowd will remember Pavel Bure.
I was just about to mention his name, as a matter of fact.
Exactly. And this is what Connelly is about. I really don't understand. I know that there were off-ice issues, but do the off-ice issues influence the ranking so much?
What are the off-ice issues? Are you talking about the picture that was put up a couple of years ago?
Yeah, and a couple of other things that were described, that were explained in a very, very thorough article in The Athletic.
Okay.
But look, I leave teams...
Like what, though? What? Pardon me, for those who've never heard it or seen it before, I mean...
like he changed teams almost every year. There were issues with teammates. There were issues with
it's a big red flag.
opponents.
It's a big red flag.
Look, I don't condone what he did.
Attitude issues?
Yeah, I don't condone all that. But I think that, first of all, teams should do their own due diligence. I'm just there to evaluate what's happening on ice, first of all.
Yeah.
And if they're not satisfied, then don't draft him. If you're okay with your interviews and you're willing to take the risk, then I think this guy should be drafted very high, which he won't be, I think. The off-ice issues, look, I think it's just a teenager being a teenager, or a bad teenager, let's say. But doesn't mean that this guy, the Trevor Connelly, the 15-year-old Trevor Connelly, will be the 25-year-old Trevor Connelly.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know him personally, so I don't know, but I'm willing to give the guy a chance.
Okay.
Yeah, and the on-ice talent is so spectacular.
Yeah.
That how can you pass on a guy like this?
When teams pick top 5 or top 6,
They're
they're not willing to give guys a chance. You know what I mean? Because
I know
you
could
could,
play it safe.
for the most part,
this.
you could end up having, if not a home run, you could probably end up having a triple.
Yeah,
in the top 5.
Yeah, but you know what? There are top 5 picks who look very good on paper, look very good on video, but they flopped.
Yeah.
You know, not every top 5 pick becomes a star.
Yeah.
So you're always taking a chance. Naily Yakupov was drafted number 1.
He was drafted number 1, and he was a flop.
And there's a lot of number 4, number 5 picks. If you go through the Hockey DB list,
yeah,
you'll see, oh my God, this guy was picked number 3. This guy was picked number 4. This guy was picked number 5. Yeah, it does happen.
Brendel was picked 4th.
Pardon me?
Pavel Brendel.
I remember for the Rangers. Lots of guys like this over the years. And
Patrick Stefan was picked 1st. I mean, I think it's safe to
Stefan.
say he didn't have the career that he was expected to have.
And Michael Dalcol was picked number 5. He was a favorite of mine, I admit. But, he's picked number 5, never had a career.
Yeah.
So why not take a chance on a uber talented guy? Look, you do your due diligence. You talk to his entourage. You talk to the guy. That's none of my business. But what I see on the ice is an absolutely spectacular player. And that's why I said that if the Habs drafted him, which they won't, I would have bought a season ticket to see.
So when we talk about pure talents, I mean, we're hearing that Macklin Celebrini is the home run, right?
Yes.
But then a lot of people say, well, you know what? Celebrini's in a category by himself. But if there's going to be someone else who's going to be in the next category by themselves, it's going to be Demidov.
Yeah.
Are you putting Trevor Connelly in that Demidov category?
Yes.
Tier 2.
Yes. Tier 2.
And everyone else tier 3.
Pretty much.
Wow.
Pretty much.
Oh.
So Celebrini, Demidov, Connelly. And then you start, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5. Yeah. Most of the defensemen who are going to be picked in the top 10, I like them, but there's a red flag with on ice red flags, that is, with every one of them. One of them is too short. One of them is not good defensively. One of them doesn't have a high ceiling offensively, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why in my top 4 or 5, I'm not even sure I'm going to have a defenseman, although these guys will go very high.
I want to get back to Demidov for a second.
Yeah.
So what's the caliber of the MHL?
Terrible. And that's why this guy is so hard to evaluate.
Wow.
Because the caliber is so weak. I wish a guy like Demidov, and I know with the conflict in Russia, they couldn't do it, but I wish a guy like Demidov would have come to the CHL. But he could have gone to the USHL. Levshunov did it.
Yes.
And then he went to Michigan State. I wish I had seen Demidov play junior hockey in North America, because right now, all you have is, you can evaluate his individual skills, but you cannot compare them with the other players because the caliber is so weak. He didn't even play in the KHL, unlike Silayev, who played the whole season in the KHL, or Michkov, but Michkov was drafted last year. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. Anyway, yeah. I think he's also very talented. I think he has 1 year left in Russia. He's going to be 19 years old because it's a late birthday. So when he arrives in the NHL at 20, I think he's going to be ready to step in, whether it be with Chicago or Anaheim or even Montreal. You don't know. I think if he's available at number 5, I think the Canadiens should jump on this guy.
Even though he's playing in a league where the caliber is terrible, like you said.
Yeah, but at some point, look, it was much easier. Well, it's never been easy, but it was not as hard to evaluate players 25, 30 years ago when they all played within the same context, which is the CHL. Now you have guys in the MHL, guys in Sweden, guys in the USHL, other guys in the NCAA. It's all over the map. You have guys in Norway. So how do you compare these guys, especially that, Russians have not been able to play in international tournaments recently?
Finland, Switzerland.
Yeah.
This goes on and on.
Yeah, the list goes on. And, Slavkovsky was playing in Liga in Finland.
Yeah.
He was so hard to evaluate. I mean, I was watching this guy, and I was thinking, what do I make of this guy?
Playing on a third line where he wasn't putting a lot of points.
And I had him ranked number 1. But what did I base it on? Basically just, I don't know, projection.
And the World Championships.
Yeah,
and the Olympics.
The Olympics. The Olympics. Look, the problem with these tournaments like the Olympics is not only was the caliber very so-so, is that they play on a European rink, which is not the size of the North American rink. And I like playing guys in North America ASAP. And that's why when guys get drafted from Europe, I like it when they bring them to the AHL as soon as possible. And it's been done. Some teams have done it.
Yes.
Yuri Kulik, Buffalo, 18 years old.
With Rochester.
Yeah, the Canadiens are bringing in Reinbacher for the end of the season. They're going to bring in Engstrom next year. I really, really like to see these guys and not basically stay in Sweden or Finland, where this is not NHL hockey, in my book. I'm not saying no good players come out of these countries, because obviously they do. But I want to see them ASAP in North America.
Is there a risk that Demidov is going to drop in the draft the way Michkov dropped? Now, we know that Michkov's case was particular. Still today, you're having a lot of people, even the Philadelphia Flyers, who drafted him at 7th. They're saying that they don't remember when was the last time they talked to him. They can't get a hold of him. You've had different teams that have said that they had tried to reach out to Michkov to interview him before the draft. In the end, they didn't, because they couldn't get a hold of him. So his case is particular. I get it. But because of everything going on in Russia, and we're hearing that some of these players are difficult to get a hold of, and then it's difficult to actually bring them over. And then if you do bring them over, they want to come over with certain assurances. And everyone's case is different. I get it. But do you think Demidov will slip because of it?
From what I hear, I don't see any issues. I think he has 1 year left in his contract, which would be okay if he played in the KHL next year. If he drops, let's say, to number 5, I don't think he'll go past the Canadiens. Honestly, that's just my feeling. It's just because the 3 other teams, forget about Celebrini, but picks 2, 3, and 4, they wanted to go for defensemen. Or they like a big guy like, let's say, Kaden Lindstrom.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to drop because he's Russian.
All right. You know what? I'm not going to pretend to know all these kids, unlike gentlemen like you and Grant who follow all these prospects religiously. But I'm going to say this. Based on all the opinions that I've heard from people who do follow you, Grant, Greg Button, list goes on and on, several independent scouts and specialized services, and even NHL scouts out there. Up until a couple of months ago, everyone talked about this as a defense-heavy draft, and still people are talking about it as a defense-heavy draft.
Yeah.
Tell me what you think. This is my observation, okay? I could be wrong here, okay? Based on everything I've heard, and I take all the bits of information that I get from all the people that I just talked about, and I try to put everything together, okay? There does not appear to be a Victor Hedman in this draft. There doesn't appear to be Quinn Hughes in this draft. There doesn't appear to be a Cale Makar in this draft. There doesn't appear to be a Miro Heiskanen in this draft. And because of that, am I crazy to think that a lot more forwards are actually going to go out in the first 6 or 7 picks because there's so many good defensemen who each have weaknesses, who are so grouped together, and there's not really a standout. Like I asked one person, they could tell me Lev Shunov's the best defenseman in the draft. Somebody else will tell me Dickinson. Somebody else will tell me Byam. Somebody else will tell me Perek. And the opinions change. Someone else might tell me Siliev. Is it possible that most of the picks in the top 6 or 7 are going to be forwards, and that because there's no standout defenseman that they might come later on?
That's how I feel. You took the words out of my mouth.
I'm starting to feel more and more like that.
But I don't know if teams feel the same way, so I cannot guess. I'm not in the war room, let's say, with those teams.
Yeah.
But I think logically that would be the thing to do. Because in my opinion, there's only one guy who, without standing out, is what I consider a safe pick, let's call it. A safe pick meaning
Sam Dickinson.
Because he's the most
he does everything really good.
Yeah, and if you look at everybody's ceiling, he's the one who probably is the closest to being a sure thing to reach that ceiling.
The Memorial Cup really helped them, solidify all that.
It did help. Yeah, and the fact that London had a very good run during the playoffs and everything. He plays in London for London Knights, which is a mini NHL team.
Yes.
I do think that he's the safest pick. Now, he's going to make it in the top 5. I don't know. I know it seems that Lev Shunov is a favorite of Draftniks because he played in Michigan State. I don't know if Lev Shunov is good enough to be picked number 2 or number 3. So it's a total mystery this year. Last year we had a pretty good idea. It was just a matter of Anaheim deciding between Carlson and Fantilli.
Yeah.
But this year, I have no clue. You could have a run of defensemen like 2, 3, 4, or you can have only one defenseman pick and 4 forwards in the top 5. I think the Habs are going to go for a forward.
I'm convinced they are.
Yeah. So where's Lev Shunov going to end being picked? Dickinson, who else could be? Look,
Zev Byam says he's the best defenseman in the draft.
Yeah, you know what? I think in terms of like the safest pick, I think he's number 2 behind Dickinson in my book. As a guy who can reach his potential. But what is his potential? Like you said, there's no Makar, there's no Hughes, there's no Hedman.
Perek's the best offensive defenseman in the draft, right?
Yeah, but I find his game a little bit messy. In the sense that I always found that Perek...
You can clean that up.
Yeah, but I always feel he doesn't have a plan. You look at the top guys, Makar, Hughes, and all these guys. Back when they were playing junior hockey, they would take the puck behind the net, and you could see that they had a plan. Perek, it's a little bit all over the place, and most of the action takes place in the opposite zone, where basically he improvises a lot of play, and he's very good at it. That's why he got 96 points.
So you think there's a lack of hockey sense there, is what you're telling me?
I don't know if it's a lack of hockey sense, but I think I don't think he's very disciplined in the way he thinks the game. Maybe that can be corrected because the NHL is more structured. Defensively, obviously, he has his weaknesses. He's not very good in his own zone, but I can live with that. If the guy scores 60, 70 points, I mean, Evan Bouchard is not great defensively, but he's a heck of a power play guy.
A heck of a power play guy, and a heck of a pick at 10 overall, by the way.
Exactly.
And, it's a couple of days now that, I know the draft is probably your favorite day of the season, and it's one of my favorite days of the season, too. And the reason why it's a favorite day is because you take a look at, and we've been talking about this over the last couple of days, the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup final, okay? Think about how important the draft is.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was drafted first overall.
Yeah.
Connor McDavid was drafted first overall. Leon Draisaitl was drafted third overall. Darnell Nurse was drafted 7th overall. Philip Broberg was drafted 8th overall. Evan Bouchard was drafted 10th overall. On the other side for Florida, Ekblad was drafted first overall. Barkov was drafted 2nd overall. And you take a look at other players that were drafted by other teams that are on the Panthers. Matthew Tkachuk was drafted 6th overall by Calgary. He was acquired for John Huberdeau,
who was drafted third overall. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sam Bennett and Sam Reinhart.
Yeah.
Were drafted
number 2 and number 4.
Number 2 and number 4, right? Reinhart number 2, Bennett number 4. And there's others, by the way, like the draft in the end. And take a look at the teams that are winning the Stanley Cup in the last decade or so. But of course, it doesn't mean that a first round pick is going to end up being a good player in the National Hockey League. And we've seen second round players in 3rd and 4th and 5th. And, you take a look at the Bergerons of this world, and you take a look at the Webbers, and you take a look at the Kucherovs, and there's so many great picks that were drafted later on in the draft, not in the first round. But for the most part, I mean, scouts know what they're doing. Like the players that go first overall are the players that end up having the highest impact on your team, or for the most part. The law of averages, right?
Least, 50% of them, which is very high.
And this is why this draft is so important. Take a look at what the Canadiens are doing, right? They drafted Slafkovsky first overall. They drafted Reinbacher at 5th overall. They drafted Caulfield at 15th overall. They acquired Suzuki, who was drafted 13th overall. They acquired Kirby Dach, who was drafted 3rd overall.
New Hook 16th.
You're right about it. So this is big. This draft coming up is going to shape the future for these teams.
Yeah.
And you draft well, you have a chance to end up being in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, look at the Sharks. They have number 1, number 14. The Hawks have another first-round pick on top of number 2. I mean,
the Devils say they're interested in trading their 10th pick overall. Does 10 hold value in your opinion, or once you pass 7, 8, 9, it doesn't hold that much value?
Look, if you go back in time, the 10th pick overall or the 9th pick overall, I remember in 2013, it was traded by New Jersey to Vancouver. They got Corey Schneider, the goaltender.
Yeah.
So at the time, Schneider was a pretty good goalie, and they got Bo Horvat for it. They drafted Bo Horvat with it. So it's hit and miss at around 9, 10,
I know some 10s who ended up being pretty good picks in that. Rantanen was a 10.
Valery Nishushkin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Kostitsyn was a 10 too.
Pardon me?
Unfortunately, Andrei Kostitsyn was a 10 too.
Exactly. And there were worse picks than Kostitsyn. So I think it's really hit and miss. But if you look at your list and you have a guy who's still very high on your list and you pick a number, if you have an opportunity to trade for number 10, why don't you do it? Depends on what you give away. But I think you have to give away a piece of your team that is not perceived to be part of the future core of the team.
Or you can give away a first-round pick in the next year's draft or the year after that.
That's very dangerous because you never know what's going to happen. Remember Ottawa with San Jose?
Yes.
San Jose gave up
for Erik Karlsson trade, right?
Yeah, and it ended up being Tim Stützle.
Yes, who was picked 3rd.
That's very dangerous. So
you don't trade it if you think you're going to be a terrible team next year. Like you don't say, "I'll give you my first-round pick next year." If next year you think you're going to be a terrible team,
or
if you're going to acquire the 10th pick overall, you have to think that you're going to finish in the middle of the pack or even better.
Yeah,
then
but
you say, "Okay, I'll do it."
Yeah, but you never know with injuries. So if I were the Habs, let's say, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to take a step up next year. I don't know if there will be injuries. What if they win the lottery? You can always protect the pick. But I think this is a dangerous thing to do. So me personally, I would rather trade an established guy who maybe doesn't have a lot left on his contract and who's maybe pushing 30 and then you feel that he's not going to be part of the core.
Gordon and Hughes have said on a couple of occasions that they, in an ideal world, they like to accelerate the rebuild. That's what Gordon was able to accomplish with the Rangers, and big reasons why, of course, is Adam Fox wanted to be traded to the New York Rangers, and they signed Artemi Panarin as an unrestricted free agent.
And Trouba.
Correct.
Yeah.
So they were able to accelerate it that way. Montreal free agency would be difficult, let's just say, but let's say the Canadiens want to go out and make trades the way they did for Kirby Dach, the way they did for Alex Newhook. Point blank, right away. Would you trade the number 5 pick overall to go out and try and make a trade to make you better right away? And if so, what are we talking here? Like the players that are available. I'll ask you right now. Anaheim calls Montreal. They say, we'll give you Zegras for the 5th pick overall. Do you do it?
No.
Carolina calls you. We'll give you Nikash for the 5th pick overall. Do you do it?
Nope. For various reasons, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll get to that in a second. Now, let me see. Let me do something a little bit crazy here now. Let's get a little bit drastic. All right. Jeez. I was going to say Ottawa, but I mean, they're in the Canadiens division, so that's not realistic, right? But
no.
Let's say Ottawa would
the
call
Yankees
you.
and the Red Sox made a trade this year.
Let's say the Ottawa would call you. They say Brady Tkachuk for the 5th pick overall. Would you do it?
Yeah.
All right.
Because he's under contract for a lot of years.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have cost certainty.
And look, it's probably not a good one that I brought up because I mean I don't see Ottawa calling Montreal, but so why wouldn't you trade the 5th pick overall for Zegras? Let's start with that.
Well, I know that Zegras had a couple of 60-point seasons.
Yes.
And what are the odds that the 5th overall pick will have 60-point seasons? It's not 100%, obviously. Zegras is still very young.
I say a good chance.
You know, yeah.
5th pick
but
overall.
There's a good chance, yeah. And so what about Zegras's? Look, he was injured this year. He played on a bad team. He's a little bit too individualistic, maybe. I don't know if I would go as far as sacrificing the number 5 pick, you know, because
he's not your kind of player.
Well, I like Zegras. I have nothing against Zegras. It's just that I also
you think they could win with him?
I think he's a complementary player. I don't think he's an impact player. I think he's a complementary player. And I think the Canadiens need more impact players, you know, more closer to Slavkovsky, let's say, than Zegras. So that's why I wouldn't do it. And there's also the contract situation, you know. How many years before Zegras hits free agency?
A couple of years away.
Yeah. And then, but then I think he becomes an RFA. Then he becomes a UFA a couple of years later. Anyway, maybe 2-3 years away from unrestricted free agency. But my point is, the guy you're going to draft, you have him for 7 years. And the first 3 years are at a very low cost.
Entry level.
So yeah. So when you, I know that fans very often, they look at players and they think, oh, we should get this guy. We should get that guy. Yeah, but now with the salary cap, a player comes with his contract or his future potential contract. And I think this is something you have to consider.
Yeah, we're actually taking a look right now at Cap Friendly. And let's go to the Anaheim Ducks just to make sure here. Trevor Zegras, 5.75 for the upcoming season, 5.75 for the 25-26 season. And after that, he's RFA.
Yeah, and you have to make him a qualifying offer.
Yes.
Which will be 10% more than 5.7. So he's at 6.2.
Correct.
Okay. Otherwise, you lose him.
Yep.
Is that worth it? Is that worth the risk? Whereas you have the number 5 pick that you have 7 years, 3 years at very low cost.
And not to mention that Uri Slavkovsky and Caden Goalie in the next 6 months here are due for a considerable raise.
Exactly. And you already have Suzuki and Caulfield, who are paid close to $8 million a year.
You want to give me an early number for Slavkovsky right away?
You mean for an 8-year contract?
8 times 8? Does it make sense to you, or you think it's too much?
Yeah. I think it's 8 times 8.
And I said, I think it's 8 times 8 too. And somebody got back to me and said, wow, that's way too much for a guy. And I said, listen.
Well, you're gambling on this. The Sabres did it with Owen Power.
Well, yeah, but look.
They knew nothing of him.
Yeah. And the Canadiens gave Cole Caulfield a $7.85 million contract for 8 years.
Yeah.
They drafted him 15th.
Yeah.
It's safe to say that the guy that they drafted first overall is going to make more than that.
And the guy never scored 40 goals.
When his second year scored 20 goals, Slavkovsky, 30 assists, 50 points, and there's only 2 players in Montreal Canadiens history, unless I'm wrong, I read this, unless I'm wrong, that picked up 20 plus goals and 30 plus assists and 50 plus points in their at age 20 or younger, and it's Lafleur and Slafkovsky.
Yeah, look, teams try to lock up their young stars after their second year so that the extension kicks in at their fourth year. After, well, you know,
at the end of the third
contract.
At the end of the third, yeah.
Because they feel that the sooner they lock up the guy,
yes,
the lesser he's going to earn in the long run and the better value you're going to get. Of course, are you risking that the guy at some point reaches a plateau or goes down or gets injured? Yes, you do.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you look at all the extensions that have been given out in the last 10 years,
yes,
you know, that type of extension, 8 times 7, 8 times 8, 8 times 9, I think the average return is pretty good.
I was talking to my buddy Jean-Charles Lajoie a couple of weeks ago. He's convinced that Slafkovsky is going to sign a bridge. That his clan is going to ask for the bridge. And I said, no, Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon are going to sign him to an 8-year deal. And he said, no, they're going to sign. Yeah, but he's a shrewd negotiator, Hughes. We know that that's his level of expertise, having been an agent for so long.
Yeah, you got Darnell there, that big contract.
You know, he inherited Suzuki, who was traded by acquired by Marc Bergevin, and the contract was given by Marc Bergevin. And then, you know, he inherited Cole Caulfield as well, but he's the one who gave Caulfield the contract of 8 years. And I'm convinced if he gave Caulfield the 8-year contract because he wants him to be a Montreal Canadien as long or longer than Suzuki, I'm convinced he's going to do the same thing with Slafkovsky.
I think that's what they want to do, but it takes two to tango.
You're right about that.
You know, obviously, you know, for those who follow baseball, I mean, Slafkovsky's agent is not Scott Boras, who likes to take his players to free agency and go year by year. But I do think that even in hockey, there are agents who will insist on the bridge because they feel that in 2 years or 3 years, the guy could be worth even more because 8 times 8, that's very nice. But look at Draisaitl when he signed for 8.5. Yeah. Edmonton bet on the fact that he would drastically improve. And he obviously, it was up the roof. But Draisaitl today, I'm sure his agent is thinking, had we done bridge, he'd be making $11 million today.
You're right. The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. And we thank them for their partnership and their sponsorship. The same goes for Playground. Their Summer Million is the must-play poker event of the season, featuring 15 championship ring events, $1 million in guaranteed prize pools with a $500,000 guaranteed main event. Playground Summer Million Poker Series, June 20 to July 1st. Visit playground.ca for details. And, of course, brewed in Quebec. I'm talking about La Bittt Tibi, a winner of a dozen international awards. La Bittt Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bittt Tibi, embrace your true nature. I want to get back to the draft for a second. And so we know where you stand. Celebrini is going to go 1. And if Demidov's there at 5 for the Canadiens, they should draft him. Mm-hmm. And if he's gone and Trevor Connelly's available, which most people seem to think would be available, you, even yourself, even though you think he's a top 3 talent in the draft, you believe he'll be available when the Canadiens draft him. As a matter of fact, I think you said you believe he's not even going to go top 10.
I think he's going to go between 15 and 20.
You think he's going to go between 15 and 20? Yeah. Okay. But if you were the Canadiens at 5, he was available, you would take him.
Yeah.
So now we got that out of the way. Celebrini will be gone, number 1. If Demidov's available at 5, you'd take him.
Yeah.
But let's just say he's not.
Mm-hmm.
If Connolly's available at 5, you'd take him. But let's just say he's not, or the Canadiens are just dead set against him. We're not taking him. Forget about it.
Let's not waste time on Connolly. Yeah.
So there's 3-4 names that we should probably bring up if we keep in mind that the Canadiens are most likely going to draft a forward.
Mm-hmm.
Tisha Ginla, Caden Lindstrom, Berkeley Catton, Beckett Seneca.
Yeah.
Is there another one that I'm missing?
No.
Those are the 4 we should talk about.
I don't think it's going to be Catton.
Because of his size?
Yeah.
We're talking like Zach Benson kind of situation where he scared some teams off and everyone knew he was a good talent and everyone knew he had good hands, but they said, is it going to be able to translate to the National Hockey League level? He's small. Probably not.
I don't think he's what the Canadiens are looking for. So we have Ginla, Seneca, and Lindstrom. I think it's going to be one of those 3.
Okay. Make a case for all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And a knock on all 3 of them.
Okay. I'll start with Lindstrom. Obviously, Lindstrom, he's a centerman, which is pretty good. I'm not sure if he's going to be a centerman in the NHL, but the fact that he's a centerman You can always move him to the wing. The other way around is a little bit harder.
Why don't you? I have to interrupt you. Pardon me.
Yeah.
Sorry for doing that, but you said something, and I need to ask you.
Yeah.
Why do you have doubts that he'll be a centerman in the National Hockey League?
I'm not sure that he has the type of vision required to play center, and I see him more as
Quinton Byfield.
Yeah, I would say.
Does that make sense?
More that style. I prefer Byfield, but more that style where I could see him on the wing, cutting to the net. So I see more that type of player. Now, he was injured this year. He had 27 goals in 32 games. He was injured for the second part of the season, so it's harder to evaluate. I would have liked to see the whole year. Now, a lot of people say that he played with McKenna, the super duper guy for 2026, but no, he played with McKenna on the power play. During the season, I saw him a lot with Andrew Basha, who's going to be a first-round pick.
Yes.
And I think he was helped by the fact that he played with Basha. I really, really think Basha is underrated. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Lindstrom, but I find that he's a big guy, but I don't know in the NHL if he's going to play big. So you're asking me to make a case for and against? Well, if he decides to play big, well, it's a big advantage for the team that takes him. But if he doesn't play big, then you lose that size advantage. What is he, 6'3", I think, 210? So too many question marks with this guy for me to consider him in the top 5. Now, I'm not saying it would be a bad pick if the Canadiens drafted him 5, because I could easily see the Canadiens have a line with Slavkovsky, Doc, and Lindstrom. And I tell you, these guys wouldn't lose the puck. Yeah. So I'm not saying it's a bad pick, but I'm not going to have him in my top 5. There's a forward of the 3 that we mentioned that I prefer to Lindstrom.
We're at Sir Winston's, and for us, it's early afternoon, and for you watching, it's later on at night. And there's a reason why we're here, because Grand Prix weekend and Sir Winston's, it kind of coincides. And what they do is it's the official opening of their terrace. And Snake and I are actually taking a look on the terrace right now. Take a look at this, right? The tables are occupied. The glasses of beer are full. I even see some sangria there or sodas. And the sun has come out after the rain came down earlier this morning. And so the terrace is absolutely full. People are enjoying it. And Sir Winston's is always a great time. Winnie's on Crescent is the place to be. As a matter of fact, they're taking pictures of us right now. Smile for the camera. There you go. There you go. Smile for the camera. All right. And so it's really a terrific ambiance, though. You have to see it. The street is pretty much closed off. And so if you have a chance to walk by the area, especially when the sun is out this weekend, there's only one Grand Prix weekend in Montreal. It's very unique, but keep in mind Winnie's throughout the entire summer. The burgers, the club sandwiches, the chicken wings, the fries, the nachos. See you at Winnie's on Crescent. All right. You talked about Caden Lindstrom. Back injury. There have been a couple of injuries. Do they scare you?
Yeah.
They do.
He's young to have back injuries. And he's a big guy. So if he decides...
Does he play the type of game where he goes in front of that traffic and he gets those cross checks?
He does goes into traffic. Like I say, he doesn't play as big as some big guys do, but he still goes to the net. So he's not afraid. And yeah, it is young to have that kind of injury.
Tija Ginla seems like an extremely safe pick.
Yes.
He can score.
Yeah.
He's getting better all the time, right? His stock has risen considerably in the last couple of months. He's got a big-time shot. He's not afraid to go into traffic.
No.
Not afraid to drop the gloves. He's a character player. And look, I put a lot of stock into Bloodline. And I can give you a million examples where it's worked out. And I'm sure people can say, well, if that's the argument, well, then Wayne Gretzky's son should have been like one of the best players ever, right? And that defeats that argument. I get it.
He was a good baseball player.
But how much stock do you put into that, the pedigree and the bloodlines and all that stuff?
Look, the first thing I look at is performance on the ice. But obviously, to me, it's like a bonus. You know, the guy grew up in NHL dressing rooms. So obviously, the adaptation will be faster than some other guys. But I think at some point, they'll catch up. Yeah. So, yeah. So,
it helps, though, to be in a household where,
like, well, any field, Tony. Your father was a lawyer.
Yes.
You want to become a lawyer? It's not going to hurt, but it doesn't mean you're going to be a great lawyer either.
You've seen him work.
Yeah.
You've seen him prepare. You've seen him live the way he lives. You know, what time he goes to bed, what time he wakes up, how he, how
the work
he eats.
ethic and So obviously it's a plus, but still, when I look at Iginla on the ice, what I really like about him is that he's not afraid to go to the net, and it's almost as if he wants to carry the puck in the net. You know, like a lot of people were saying about the Rocket Richard back in the day. I haven't seen him play. Obviously, I'm 58. But a lot of older people told me the guy would just carry the puck in the net. And Iginla, he's that type of player. He really wants to put the puck in the net, and he's not afraid. Now, he's also a decent passer. His skating is fine, but not spectacular. He's a tough guy. So, yeah, he is a safe pick.
He's a top 6.
Yeah,
second line winger, safe to say?
Probably safe to say a second line winger, maybe first, depending on the team he ends up with. But I think he's a top 6 player. The only thing is the 47 goals in the WHL.
You're not a fan of the WHL.
I'm not a big fan of the. I think the numbers are a little bit inflated. That includes for Berkeley Catton. I love Berkeley Catton, but I realize his numbers were a little bit inflated. So I'm concerned that the 47. I think in the Ontario Hockey League, I don't think he would have scored 47 goals.
Okay.
Nevertheless, I think he's a good guy to consider. Again, probably more around the 10th pick than the 5th pick.
Beckett Seneca.
Yeah.
Grant is the president of the fan club.
Yeah. I'm the vice president.
All good.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Here's a guy whose stock has been rising considerably.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
In the last couple of months. I read a story, I think, where his dad is about 6'3". His mom, I think, is about 5'11".
Mm-hmm.
And he was not very tall for a very, very long period of time. At one point, he said to his mom, was I adopted or something? What's going on? And now, fast forward 6 months to a year after a comment and he wasn't growing all that much, he's now close to 6'4". So while he was going through this growth spurt,
5 inches, I think.
While he was going through this growth spurt, and I've seen this a lot as well in soccer, and you've seen it a lot in hockey. Scouts will come out and see you, and they might think your coordination is absolutely terrible at one point if they don't know what you're going through.
Yeah.
Shrewd scouts who know that you're going through a growth spurt are like, you know what? This isn't really this kid. And once he develops into his body and he fills out and it all comes together, this kid's going to be a lot better than what we're seeing right now, right? Yeah. So here he is. He's 6'4". I think I read a stat somewhere where in the last 23 or 24 games, he outproduced Iginla and he outproduced Lindstrom.
Yes.
Having said that, I don't know of too many publications, too many independent scouts. Even if you survey NHL scouts, I don't know of too many who have him going 5, 6, 7. If he's available at 5, are the Canadiens taking a big chance? Or in your opinion, you'd be very comfortable with that pick?
I'd be very comfortable because, like I told you, you're always taking a chance. Whether it be, Lindstrom's back issues, whether it be that you're drafting a defenseman who might just reach a plateau as number 3, number 4. If Iginla becomes a second liner, look, you're at number 5, you're trying to hit a home run. This is my philosophy. I know it's easier said than done because, my job doesn't depend on it, but I still would do it. The thing is with Seneca, I think the right now, most of it is projection. And to me, that's the red flag because a lot of guys are being projected. You see this also in basketball. Oh, this 7-foot guy, once he fills up, he's going to be a monster. And then the guy doesn't do anything. So I think you have to be careful with that type of projection. I'm always wary of players who skyrocket in the rankings at the end of the year. But
that happened with Kotkaniemi. Kotkaniemi
Yes.
was 16, 17, 18 on a lot of
Yes.
lists.
but
And then all of a sudden you get to the draft and everyone's saying, yeah, you know what, 5, 6. And then
exactly. And he
and-
was supposed to be like, what, 15 all year?
Yeah.
And
And the
so-
Canadiens drafted him at third.
So I'm always concerned about this. However, in Seneca's case, I would be willing to take the chance because of what I've seen of him, because he's highly skilled. He is highly skilled with the puck. I love his hands. I love players like him. Tall, skilled guys. So yes, there is projection. I don't know how good he's going to be, but if the Habs drafted him, I would say, wow, that's a fantastic pick. And he's the type of guy that maybe he's not at Connelly's level in my book in terms of being like a spectacular player, but he can make some very, very spectacular plays at times. And I think he would be part of a good show at the Bell Center.
Wow. Okay. So we got why is no one talking about goalies anymore? Is it not a goalie draft or what's going on? Are you a fan of drafting goalies or not?
Yes and no. I'm okay with getting a Vasilevsky, let's say, but that's once in a blue moon.
You remember that draft, eh?
2012. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say that he is the best player from that draft?
Him and Forsberg. Yeah. I had them 1 and 2, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah. Forsberg 1, Vasilevsky 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good.
But I had some bad years too. So
No, but that's
just
no,
focus
but
on
you know,
that.
I'm happy you brought it up because everyone will remind you of your bad years, by the way, and everyone will remind you of your mistakes.
They're going to tell me I had Tyson Joe's strength number 4, and I thought he was going to be a 70-point guy.
So listen, I have no problem with you reminding everyone when you got it right. I got no problem with that because that was the Galchenyuk, that was the Neil Yakupov draft.
Yeah.
So Yakupov won 1. It was Murray 2.
Yeah,
Galchenyuk 3.
Yeah, Griffin Reinhardt 4, who I thought was a terrible pick, and Morgan Riley.
Morgan Riley 5.
I had Riley at 3. So I think I had a pretty good.
Philip
goal.
Forsberg won 11.
Yeah.
And Vasilevsky, I think, won 16 or 19. 19.
Yeah, 19.
Wow.
Well, what had happened with goalies at times, I don't know if you remember, but in the early 2000s, goalies were the thing, the hot thing to draft.
Yeah.
I mean, DiPietro went number 1 in 2000.
Roberto Luongo won number 4.
Yeah, he was a good one.
Marc-Andre Fleury,
number 1 in
2003.
But if you look at the 2003 draft, I don't think Fleury deserved to be number 1 in a redraft.
No. Well, the best player for that draft, 2003, is was 2003. For me,
who do you have?
Patrice Bergeron.
Yeah, I think he would have to be in my top 3, top 2, top 3. Yeah.
Some will say Getzlaf.
Yeah.
I have Bergeron. I think Bergeron is the best player from that draft.
Yeah, because
second round, 45th overall.
Yeah. So you see, but there were guys like Kari Lehtinen, drafted number 2 by Atlanta.
Yeah.
You had Pascal Leclerc at number 8. I mean, the list goes on, and I think at some point,
Price 5.
Price 5 was good, but I think after that, Jean Tabernier, number 11, good career. I mean, honest career, but obviously not worthy of the 11th pick. So I think at some point, teams realized that, this guy won the Vezina Trophy and he was drafted in the 6th round. Oh, this guy won the Stanley Cup. He was undrafted, et cetera, et cetera. And I think they look at goalies as voodoo now. And that basically you just do like the Canadiens did last year. They drafted 3 goalies outside of the top 2 rounds. And then you just throw darts and hope that one day one will catch fire. And look, Jacob Fowler is has a pretty good start to his college career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So goalies, who's the top goalie in the draft?
I don't know. I studied the goalies, but no one stands out to me. No one. But you know what? It doesn't mean that one of these guys drafted, I don't know, in the 5th round won't be a star in 10 years.
You said to me the safest pick as a defenseman is Dickinson.
Yeah.
Where he does everything pretty good or really good.
Mm-hmm.
who's the defenseman that could be the home run? Who's got the highest ceiling? And he might not hit it. He might strike out. Because I got to tell you, Fileyev's got quite a package there of 6'7".
Yeah, but I think his offensive skills are extremely limited. I think the best case scenario for Filyev is Zadorov, which is pretty good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but
so it's impossible he ends up being a Hedman sider, this, that.
No, I don't see it. I don't see it. The highest ceiling.
Herrick.
I mean, for poolers, maybe. But I still think it's Dickinson in terms of becoming an all-star. You know, Dickinson, I see him as maybe kind of a Jay Boomister, but maybe slightly better offensively. So I don't know, but there's one sleeper in that group of defensemen in the first or second round.
A cousin of Quinton Musty or what?
No, the brother of a Habs player.
The brother of a Habs player.
Yeah.
Hudson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know what? Cole Hudson, he's a little bit stronger than his brother. He's faster. And he's as good as his brother with puck handling. The only thing he doesn't have is these fancy little moves around the blue line that Lane has, you know, with the shoulders.
Elusiveness.
Yeah, elusiveness, I would say. But in terms of straight line skating and carrying the puck, and the only thing he has to improve, really, his shot. His shot is not great, but, you know, Quinn Hughes' shot is not great. It's not the end of the world. So I would say that the sleeper amongst defensemen is Cole Hudson.
We're going to have fun with you now. This is going to be the best way to end off the show, okay? Knowing what you know about Lane Hudson.
Yeah.
And knowing what you saw with Lane Hudson.
Yeah.
Lane Hudson right now as he is.
Mm-hmm.
If he was in this draft, would you put other defensemen ahead of him?
You mean the 18-year-old Hudson or the 20-year-old Hudson?
The 20-year-old Hudson. Because the 18-year-old Hudson won second round 67.
I think that there would still be concerns about his size and his capability of being able to go through 20, 25 minutes a game in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Would Reinbacher be drafted as the first defenseman in this draft if he was in this year's draft?
That's a good question. I think I have him along the line of Sam Dickinson. So I don't know if teams would prefer Dickinson because maybe he's, like I say, he played in the CHL. Reinbacher played in Europe. I think it would be either Dickinson or Reinbacher in my book. Because I find that Reinbacher is superior to Levshunov, Parek, and Silayev. Then with Dickinson, I don't know. Maybe I give the edge to Dickinson, but not by much.
The hour went so fast, and not only did it go fast, we actually even had lunch together and a pint together before. So now we've been together for about 3 hours, believe it or not, and we're still. I haven't gone crazy yet. Put it that way. He is the guy that they call a snake. Personally, I call him Uzerpend. And this was a lot of fun. We were live at Winnie's earlier in the day on Friday morning / afternoon. The rain came down in the morning. The sun came out in the afternoon. We're here. It's Grand Prix weekend, and they've kicked off their summer festivities, and they kicked off their terrace at Sir Winston's, Winnie's on Crescent. Always a great time. Simon, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to actually come down.
It was great.
And spend some time with me. And I think everyone appreciated that's watching.
I hope they do.
Thank you very much. All right, there you have it. Encourage him on his podcast on La Commission Athlétique. It's called Processus, and he does it along with Mathias Brunet from La Presse newspaper. He is, once again, Simon the Snake Boisvert. I call him Userpend. I'm Marinaro. For Sammy at Master Control, he's Cavallaro. Thank you so much, Winnie's, and thank you to Energy Transportation Group, Playground, and La Bittt Tibi. Enjoy your evening, enjoy your Grand Prix weekend, and we'll talk to you again on Monday on the Sick Podcast. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBeat.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.